Hello, everybody. Welcome to Profiling Evil by Mike King. We're here at the Profiling Evil Studios, and I have with me Reed Richards in the back here. You'll raise your hand there, Reed, and Rod Layton. We're here. We're going to be visiting about the Children's Justice Centers, and you've heard me talk about this over and again as we've gone. I want to just shout out to everybody. Thank you so much to our mods who jumped in at the last minute to take care of things. Thank you, Alexandria Guzman. Thank you for that kind super chat. And AK, good to see you. It's always nice to see AK popping in. Folks, you know that I've talked about the Children's Justice Center a lot over the last 6 months as we've unveiled and released Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult. The Children's Justice Center became pivotal as we started into this investigation, and Reed Richards was actually the impetus for that happening. I wanted to have him on today. He continues to serve on the board and serves in the Utah Victims' Rights Coalition group, where he serves as a board member, former Attorney General, Chief Deputy, and was my boss both at the Attorney General's office and is a two-term county attorney at the time that the Zion Society investigation went on. With him is Rod Layton, who is the current director of the Children's Justice Center in Ogden. We were police officers many years ago when we were young boys, and we had the privilege of serving together on the streets, and it's been great to see him take over the Children's Justice Center. But I really am excited to bring in some really special guests, survivors of the Zion Society cult. You've heard me talk about these beautiful children many times. Those of you who have read the book are going to actually meet them now. And if we can back off, so let's just bring them in and introduce the world to them. As far away as Germany, Dawn, it's great to have you here. Dawn and her husband are serving in the military and in Germany right now. And then from the bottom on my right, Anessa, in the middle, Laura, and her sister, Andrea. Welcome aboard, you four.
Hi, thank you.
Now, this is a participatory sport today, and I want you to chat and have some fun. I think back to a year ago, we all met for the first time after 30 years on a call very similar to this, and it changed my life. And Reed, we had a pretty remarkable experience that day a year ago on the phone with them.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like a year ago, though. You're right. It just seemed
it
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, well, so I wanted the four of you, and you're going to have to represent the other 28 of you, but I wanted you to hear some really exciting news about where the Children's Justice Center has come and where it's going. So Rod, would you just take a minute? And I want you to know something. Rod was actually there on the day that you kids were rescued. And I thought you might have some questions for him. So
many.
Black hair. It didn't look like this, and you were just little tiny girls. So I am feeling really old right now. It is so wonderful to see all of you. Just wonderful, and you're doing so well. That's very encouraging that the work that we're trying to do works, and that we have great successes. So I was out there.
Do you remember which homes you walked through, Rod? Did you go through all of them?
I went through all of them. Yeah, I went through all of them. I was just helping with the warrants and the different things, but I was working for the Weaver County Sheriff at the time in the Youth Bureau. So yeah, I wondered where you all went. So I am so excited to see a few of you. Congratulations on the wonderful life that you have now. I'm so happy for you.
Give them a snapshot of what your lives have turned out like. Would you, Dawn, let's start with you.
I don't even know where to start, I guess. I guess I'm been married for nearly 20 years now. We've got 2 kids. Like Mike said, we're in Germany right now. My husband will be retiring from the Air Force in about 5 years. So yeah, it's been kind of crazy ups and downs through the wars and whatnot, but it's been good.
Thanks, Don. Anessa?
I have been married for about 22 years with 3 children. And well, life is just life, but the last 15 years have been in real estate and doing very well in that. And yeah, just living life and taking every day as it comes. And of course, in the last year, experiencing a lot of new things with a lot of old people.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate that old either.
A general term.
Laura?
I've been married for about 25 years. I have 3 fabulous children. I've stayed in the local area and have been working for a local business for a really long time and have just stayed active in the community. And I recently took up golf, which is taking up my spare time right now as my kids get older and are moving out of the house.
Great. And Andrea?
So I actually moved away from the local area 24 years ago and have been trying to find the perfect town since. I don't think the perfect town exists. But I'm currently in a little tiny town in North Carolina, Asheville, and I'm not married and I don't have kids. I took a different route, but I'm with an amazing partner right now that I'm really growing a lot with. And I realized early on I really needed some serious therapy and I really wanted an education. So I worked really hard to make sure I got an education. I'm actually working on my master's degree right now in creative writing, which is extremely satisfying. And then just to support myself through this weird experience of life that we've all tried to muddle through, I started as a jewelry business. So that supported me for now 15 years. And I kind of pieced it all together. It's been a tough haul, but I've figured it out with a lot of persistence.
Well, and tell them your website, Andrea, because your jewelry is beautiful. And I want you all to know I'm a customer.
Yeah, you bought 1 or 2 pieces and it turned out to be like 5 pieces or something. dandyjewelry.com. It's a silly, memorable name is what I picked.
Well, thank you. And Rod, I want to just turn it over to you. Tell them where the CJC has come from then.
Yeah, we've changed a lot over the years. So we now have 25 CJCs across the state of Utah. So there's not a single area in the whole state that's not covered by CJC. So now if we have children that have been abused, they come to the closest CJC. Instead of driving them to St. George to be interviewed or to Utah County, they come to that CJC and the officers travel. And so we try to make it as accommodating as we can. We've added forensic interviewers. So we now have forensic interviewers. Law enforcement does not do the interviews anymore, thank goodness. We've learned that we thought we were really good at forensic interviewing, but we weren't. And so we've also found that defense attorneys have become very aggressive in their examinations of that interview and how it's done, which type of questions were asked, and all of that. So now we're not quite there across the entire state with forensic interviewers in every center, but we're getting close. The other thing we've added is a mental health component. So when you come in now, you'll come in, you'll do the forensic interview. We then move the children to a medical examination. From the medical examination, then they move into a coordinator who sets up therapy if they don't have access to that. And then we pay for all that. So they can be in therapy as long as they need to. And so we've changed a lot of things. We're still changing stuff. And it usually comes from the children that we meet with when we see something and go, that didn't work very well, and so we changed the process. We also have a multidisciplinary team of professionals that work on these cases. And believe it or not, we actually talk to each other instead of, multiple interviews, multiple examinations. We sit down once a week and we go over each case individually. A few years ago, we found that some of these cases were not getting reviewed. And so it's now mandatory. So they don't have a choice. The officer doesn't have a choice. Child Protective Services doesn't have a choice. As soon as you walk in, your name goes on that list, and we make sure that your case is covered in that meeting. So, and it's very focused on what the children need, not so much on the perpetrator. It's focused on what we can do for the kids. So there's been tremendous changes in how we do it. And I foresee in the next 5 years, we'll change other stuff. It's just a learning process. We think we know it all, but we don't.
And ladies, please, any questions you have, just interrupt. But I wanted Reed to take a minute too, because if you remember, Reed was the prosecutor in your cases, and many things have changed because of a bunch of kids in 1991 and those that followed them. So Reed, maybe you could just share some of the ways in which children who are victimized are treated better today than they were 30 years ago.
I think these four could probably help us with that more than I could. I think the experience that all of you went through opened the eyes for many of us to things that should be done that weren't being done. Certainly the interview technique, using somebody that's not a police officer but is trained to interview children, is a huge advancement, and it's much more likely to get the truth and to be less impactful on the child. The fact that every child that goes through that center now is given an evaluation for psychological treatment and offered that treatment at no charge, I think is a big advantage. Now, we still can't force the parents into cooperating, and that was one of the challenges we had with your case. But it's hard for them not to cooperate if a trained therapist has interviewed the child and said, this child really needs to continue. So it gives the court a little armor if they need it to try to force the issue if that happens. The medical part has been good too. And you were not injured physically, but a lot of children that are abused are physically injured. And this allows us to identify that. And sometimes they'll see other problems the children are going through physically, and we can then refer those kids to get the help that they need, not only psychologically, but also for their physical health. So those changes have been good. We've also been able to change the laws in Utah since the case that you were involved in, so that no longer do children have to testify at all at the preliminary stages of the case. It's all done through the interview that takes place in the Children's Justice Center. That's used as evidence in the preliminary stages of the court hearing, and the child doesn't have to testify. So that also is something that came from the experiences that you and other children went through.
So before I share a little information with them, I wanted to just give you for a chance to ask any questions before I want to ask Rod about something kind of exciting that's coming down the pike here.
I have another question, a burning question. So since 91, how many children have you dealt with that were from an environment like ours that weren't just more run-of-the-mill child abuse? I hate to say that that there is run-of-the-mill, but I'm thinking about it's like an exit mind control specific counseling that we all really could have benefited from, because it wasn't just the abuse, it was the psychological problems that we left with. I'm wondering, in other words, I'm wondering how many people you've had to deal with that's has similar types of problems that we left with.
You want me to take that one, Rod?
Yeah, you want to.
I think that's a better question asked on a statewide basis, because we haven't had a lot of polygamous cult type groups in our county other than the one that you were involved in. But statewide, of course, Utah is the center for polygamy. And we have made huge progress in breaking apart the Colorado City polygamous group that really is the largest probably in the country. And many of those children have received the benefits of all these services that I've talked about. Many of them were not physically or sexually abused, but the psychological abuse was incredible.
Definitely.
For example, in those polygamous groups, they can't have a whole lot of men. And so the boys that grow up in that group at a certain age either stay and become polygamous husbands, or they're kicked out of the group. The vast majority are kicked out, and they are just lost souls. We call them the lost boys. And they receive special treatment at children's justice centers and at the places that they're referred. And hopefully we're doing a much better job of dealing with that issue now.
Yeah, let me add just a little bit to that too, because we've been way more aware of certain kids that come from certain groups that they need to be interviewed differently. And so the cultural stuff has become very big in all the centers. From my center, for example, I have a Spanish-speaking coordinator, and I found that when she walks out and meets with the family, it's almost like, oh, there's somebody that understands us. And so my other coordinators will walk out there, but they just don't respond as well to that. And we have a couple of centers that have the Indian reservations in their centers. So they've got specialized training to deal with that. And like Reed says, down towards the southern part of the state, you got St. George, you got Cedar City. They deal a lot with the polygamous families down there. And they have to ask questions differently, and they have to understand the culture a little bit better. And we've never worried about that in the past. That's never been an issue, but we found that you need to address that. You need to be prepared when those children walk in, that they see a Spanish person, they feel way more at ease talking with that person than they do, say, me. So it's become a very big part of what we do, and we try to address that stuff.
The polygamous groups down south didn't take child abuse to the level that Arvin Shreve did. But Warren Jeffs, you've probably heard of him. He was the prophet down there, and he was arranging for himself and others to marry in religious marriages. They weren't legal. Kids that were 13 years old. And so to the extent that that was happening, those kids were essentially being raped. You can't do that for people under a certain age. So that was somewhat comparable, but not to the degree that we saw with all of you.
Yeah. Any other questions from you?
I don't think so.
So here's what I wanted to do. We were really blessed with a nice donation from a group called the Business Leaders Against Organized Crime, and Don Hansen. It's actually a group that Reed and I set up 33 years ago, where the business community could come forward and help law enforcement with different kinds of things. We wanted to just take this opportunity to pass that money on to the Victims' Rights Council rather than do something different with that. Read with the idea that the money would be used to train police officers in child abuse crimes and investigations. Yeah. So please, from all of us, accept that. And then I wanted you to hear about an exciting new thing that is going to be happening in Weber County. Rod, if you could talk about.
So one thing we've learned over the years is that, believe it or not, the building that you guys went to makes a difference. When you walk into that building, it has to have a certain style, a certain feel, you have to have lighting, you have to have rooms where families can meet, and it's confidential, and so many different things we found about the building. And so we decided 2 years ago, approximately, that we were going to start a process of building a new CJC in Weber County. So we've just found a piece of property. We hope that the property is going to work out for us. It's just right in the center of Ogden. And we're going to go in and we're going to design a CJC that's very comfortable, inviting. It's the colors are right, the lighting is right. We've kind of got an idea in our heads about how this would work. And so it's almost like a journey that the kids would go on, where they would come into our building, they would go in and be interviewed. They would go to another section of the building that would be the medical examination. They'd do the medical. They would go into the third part of the building, which would be the mental health side of things, where they get an assessment. And then the last part of the building would be actually the final part of their journey. They would actually exit through the backside of the building, and we would tell them, you've told your story. You've told your story. You're physically okay. The nurses have checked you out. Your body's healthy and strong, and you're okay. And then here's some ideas and some tools on how you're going to deal with the emotional side of this. And now it's over. So as you walk out this building, you won't need to come back. You won't need to be interviewed again. You won't have to have another medical examination, because children are afraid of that. They're intimidated, like, do I really have to go through this process again? And as they leave, they will understand that that journey is done. We've got that. And now you can start your life, and you can take this off of your shoulders. So we're hoping to get this started sometimes this year. There's lots of things you got to work through to get a building built, but we want to build one that's unique to Ogden and Weaver County that other people will come and look at. We don't want to go look at their centers. We want them to come and look at ours and say, this is the way to build a building. This is the way to make it work. So we'll see how it goes.
Thanks, Rod. And these four and their fellow children in the group were among the first to go to the first Children's Justice Center in the state. Yep. And so much has changed over that time. But here's what I wanted to make sure you were all on line for. Bonnie, and Bonnie and I talked, and we've decided that the proceeds from the Deceived book will go to this new Children's Justice Center. And I'm going to give you that, Rod. And
we can open this.
Yeah, there's nothing in it, but please do open it. No, there's.
I know Mike pretty well. There's probably nothing.
But we want you to know that it's because of you that money's available, and we just feel so honored to do it. Wow. And you all are the reason that it happened. So I just felt like we felt like we just wanted you here when that happened. So Rod,
thank you, Mike. It's interesting because I ran into a little problem with my building the other day, just a bit to get this thing started, and where we needed a little bump, just a few $1,000s to get us past this little thing. And now we can do it, because I didn't have the money to make sure the land is gonna, there's some issues with the soil, and we have to get the soil checked and we have to make sure that passes the inspections. And so I don't have another source of money right now, and that will get me there.
That's great.
So thank you. I didn't expect this much.
Well, good. We hope that there's much more. So folks, we just want you to know that from our perspective, if you're picking up that book, it's going back to help the very ones that deserve that, and read for victims' rights across the state, that it hopefully is helping police officers get better at what they do.
There are a lot of things they can do to get better, and this will help.
Yeah. So to you 4 stars of this show, I just want to say how much I love you, and I hope you're well. And we're going to keep battling. I'm just so proud every time I hear from you of what you're up to. And I'm going to give you the last word if any of you want to say anything, and then we're going to say goodbye.
I want to say thank you so much, Mike. That's so touching.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, and just thank you for having us on. And I'm so happy and proud of you for all the work that you've done in the last year. And I'm just always grateful to be a participant.
It's amazing to see the difference over the years and what's the good that's come out of it, for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, you guys are the heroes. Thank you so much. We love you, and we appreciate the fact that you have allowed us to learn from what you experienced, because children today are in better hands because of what you had to endure many years ago as we kind of glumped along. So Reed, Rod, thank you so much. And from all of us at Profiling Evil, thanks. We hope you all have a great day. And thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye, girls.
Thank
Bye.
you.